The council meeting was punctuated by repeated clashes between District 5 Councilman Luther Oliver and District 3 Councilman Joe Reed. There was an argument over a request from the Shriners to rent some city land to build a hospital on. Mr. Reed at first blocked council consideration of the matter, and he and Mr. Oliver argued about that. Later, Mr. Reed reconsidered and brought the item back before the council. It was passed, and he and Mr. Oliver argued about that. There was an argument about community development funds. Mr. Oliver questioned Mr. Reed when Mr. Reed asked a question about the transfer of some funds, a transfer Mr. Reed said at the outset he would be in favor of. There were numerous other outbreaks between Mr. Oliver and Mr. Reed, Mr. Oliver and Mr. Gilmore, Mr. Oliver and Mr. Peake. Eventually, Mr. Reed said Mr. Oliver owed everyone in the council chamber an apology, and Councilman Donald Watkins said, quote, "Mr. Oliver appears to be intoxicated or drunk," end quote. Mr. Oliver said Mr. Reed was a public clown and said drunkenness is a state of mind and asked for a drunkenness test. Earlier in the day, liquor was the subject of another conversation in the council chambers as a council committee held a public hearing on the question of who should and who shouldn't be allowed to sell liquor in the city. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
First place, no matter where an event takes place or a situation develops, worldwide, our job is to maintain a system, a modern system, which must be modernized continuously. You just can't buy one and let it sit there for 50 years. But it must be survivable, and it must impart in the mind of the Soviet management, if you will, at the moment, Mr. Andropov, if he doesn't get knocked off. But in any event, you must always keep in the mind of the leader a seed of doubt that no matter what preemptive action he'd take against us, the results would be unacceptable. That's what we call deterrence, and that's what we have been doing, and that's what we should continue to do.
Admiral Thomas Murrah.
You must always keep in the mind of the leader a seed of doubt that no matter what preemptive action he'd take against us, the results would be unacceptable. That's what we call deterrence, and that's what we have been doing, and that's what we should continue to do.
The other factor was us not defensing their zone offense at the start of the second half. They out-executed us tremendously at the start. You have to give Tennessee a lot of credit. I think it was one on with their zone offense at the start of the second half more than anything else in our missed free throws. We executed well. We shot the basketball well, I think 70% in the second half. But one place that we hurt ourselves was we would make steals and not convert the steals into baskets. Our steals went into turnovers, going back the other way.
I thought our team certainly deserves credit for being pretty methodical about getting the ball inside and just attempting to stay in there defensively. My team is not playing as well as it needs to. We're just not as stingy as we need to be defensively, and we don't take advantage of our free throws late in the game.
This is Oak Hill Manor, the home of Tumbling Waters Museum in the historic Cottage Hill area of Montgomery. While the Flag Museum uses the house, the mortgage is in the name of its curator, Charles Brannan. And now, according to trustee president Frank Seago, the museum faces bankruptcy. It's several months behind on a mortgage payment of $876 a month, and there's no money to pay it.
We found that our donors were not able to contribute as they have been in the past. We had mortgages on the building. We had to seek some means to pull ourselves out of the hole so that we might continue with this fine facility for Montgomery and for all the nation. So today we're standing on the threshold of either having to close the Tumbling Waters Museum of Flags or to ask you if you will come forward with contributions or volunteer help that will keep the Tumbling Waters Museum of Flags in the city of Montgomery.
There are some alternatives for the museum if enough money is not found to keep it open. Sell some of the assets or turn it over to the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts. Mr. Seago says he and the other board members want to keep the museum running and pay off the debts. And if that happens, Mr. Seago says there will be some changes made in the way the museum is run. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
I don't think you can use all that. I know you can't, but...
And the flag behind you was made by a prisoner of war in the Civil War.
Officials with Southwest Nuclear Company of Maryland say it should take 2 to 3 days for them to prepare the radioactive material for shipment to the U.S. Ecology Site in Richland, Washington. The waste will be transported by truck. Most of the waste is in the form of radium needles, once used in cancer treatment. Since the early 60s, state health departments around the country have been collecting the radioactive needles that have found their way out of doctors' offices and into banks, high schools, and sheriff's offices. From the mid-60s until last November, the radioactive needles have been shipped to Montgomery for storage. The needles are placed in aluminum canisters, then transferred to a containment bucket and lowered into a concrete vault by a chain. Director of the Radiation Lab, Charles Porter, says 10,000 of the needles are stored in the vaults, along with some other low-level radioactive materials. Now that commercial sites are accepting the waste materials, the Montgomery lab is going out of the storage business.
Our goal is, I hope, by shutting it down, that we don't stop the disposal of radium-226 off the market. We feel that other radionuclides that are available for medical therapeutic uses that are much better and can be used, and they should continue to be used.
As workers pack the materials in their own containment chambers for transport to Washington State, it closes a chapter on what some officials have called the most successful public health program for the removal of radioactive materials.
We feel that we have reduced the man-rim exposure to unknown people more than any other radiation program in the country.
Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
Governor Wallace offered the legislators a package of 6 bills, 5 of which deal with the general fund budget crisis. The 6th bill deals with the creation of a prison commissioner to run the prison system as it is phased out of federal court supervision. Of the 5 bills dealing with the funding situation, 2 stand out. One would allow the state to use $3.2 million of the interest income from the state's massive $520 million oil lease investment package to help Medicaid. The other bill offers an increase to the gas and oil severance tax, an increase that comes on the heels of unsuccessful efforts to get a group of oil companies to drop a suit tying up some $30 million in contested severance taxes.
Certainly it'll make a lot of projects that might be viable now not viable with that extra tax. It's a very, very high tax if that would pass.
Governor Wallace didn't address the 2 chambers, but instead delivered a written message and a personal plea through Representative Roy Johnson of Tuscaloosa to concentrate solely on his package of bills.
We've asked House members to put their pet projects and the bills that they have of their own interest aside, and let's concentrate totally on the governor's package so that we can provide relief to the general fund.
Nonetheless, legislators lined up with their bills, a total of 38 of them in the House, There weren't any immediate protests to the governor's proposals, but that may change when the package of bills come up for committee consideration tomorrow. More controversy may pop up during this special session over the issue of reapportionment. Dennis Latham explains the problems surrounding that issue.
Bulldogs have the lead. Georgia keeps on building on the lead. Fleming steals, drives a baseline. Bulldogs do some running on the break. Derek Floyd, Gerald Crosby on the layup, and it's 46-35 at the halftime. Jerry Fair with a nice move inside here. He beats Eugene McDowell, and the Dogs go up 50-37. But Florida came back. Delancey takes the long inbounds pass. Guess what? He goes in and jams it, and the Gators are within 9. Now, the Gators kept making a comeback. Ronnie Williams inside. He's fouled. Three-point play, and Florida's within 3. But Georgia hangs in. Crosby steals. Bulldogs bring it down. They get it to Vern Fleming, and he's got the layup. Georgia back up by 7. Florida didn't quit, though. Charles Griffin, nice move inside. Gators are within 2, 73-71. But
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye.
Okay, that's the way it ought to be. Since it'd be down here instead of in the school. That's the way it ought to be. That's the way it ought to be. Right. I move the adoption of 682. Second.
Discussion?
The question is that is it a violation of the ethics law for an employee to the compliance of the DPS? And the
Wallace administration floor leaders worked to block the plan to redraw Senate and House districts. The matter was carried over in the House Judiciary Committee, but the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee plunged headlong into a public hearing on the bill. Joining the Senate committee was Representative Charles Langford, chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Of major concern was the recent intervention of a group of West Alabama blacks who don't like the committee's plan as it relates to Selma and Dallas County. Albert Turner told the committee he didn't like the city of Selma not being in a majority black district. He also said the district, including Selma, is too large. J.L. Chestnut says whatever the legislature passes, his group will insist that new elections be held for House and Senate seats this year. The public hearing continues Thursday to give committee members more time to learn the details of the latest opposition to the remapping plan. Once in session, Wallace floor leader Earl Goodwin of Selma went to the mic and asked members of the upper chamber to concentrate on the governor's general fund bailout package. A spokesman for the governor says if the legislature completes the package in a 5-day session, then Governor Wallace will call the lawmakers back to town on Monday to consider reapportionment legislation. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
The Commission unanimously adopted the resolution before the start of their regular meeting. There was little discussion since the Commissioners knew they had no choice but to turn the matter over to the Attorney General's office. They gave Dr. Pratt her options before she was elected, but according to the resolution, Dr. Pratt hasn't seen fit to abide by the ethics law. Dr. Pratt didn't attend the meeting. When contacted at her job in Huntsville, she didn't want to comment on the resolution, but did say she intends to serve in both capacities. On an unrelated issue, Ethics Commission Executive Director Melvin Cooper told me he was surprised to learn that the mayor of Prattville is asking for an investigation of the State Ethics Commission.
My goodness. Well, I have not seen the letter.
Mr. Cooper says he welcomes a probe.
If he wants an investigation, we'll open up everything that anybody wants to see at any time.
In the letter, Mayor Gray Price questions Mr. Cooper's role as executive director and his friendship with the Prattville City Councilman and evidence that led to an Ethics Commission investigation of the Prattville Fire Department. That investigation revealed what was referred to as probable cause to believe that 3 fire officials violated the state ethics law by using their office for personal gain. Mayor Price went on to say he didn't like the way the investigation was conducted. In the meantime, Mr. Cooper plans to invite Mayor Price to the next commission meeting to publicly disclose his allegations. Mayor Price says he'll accept.
Sure,
Kim
I'll
Davis,
go.
WSFA
I talked
TV
to one of
News.
the senators yesterday from
The efforts of oil companies to block passage of the gas severance tax increase bill stepped up today. The Alabama Petroleum Council today indicated some of its members perceive the increase as punishment for the unsuccessful effort to negotiate a settlement between the Wallace administration and oil companies over a lawsuit tying up some $30 million in contested severance taxes. And executives of major oil producers like Exxon and Mobil Oil showed up in committee meetings today. Those executives warned the higher tax may be the increased cost that would make oil exploration and production in Alabama unprofitable. This, they say, would cut off millions of dollars a year in taxes that would be generated in the future. During the committee meetings, representatives and senators from the Mobile area, representing some of the state's largest oil fields, stood with the oil companies in opposition to the higher tax. But sponsors of the bill say the increase isn't large enough to deter production and won't trickle down to increased gas prices at the local service station. Those proponents also contend the large oil companies receive a number of federal tax breaks that balance out the proposed increase. The tax increase bills, though, passed both of the money committees. The other 4 bills in the governor's package moved without problem, and the entire package will be up for House and Senate floor debate tomorrow. Some of the hottest debate, though, today squared off legislators against themselves and the House and Senate leadership. The issue, reapportionment. Dennis Latham has more. Only one of the governor's 5-bill package to bail out the budget mustered any significant opposition, that being the bill proposing a 2% increase on the gas and oil severance tax. Executives from Exxon and Mobil Oil, joined by other independent oil producers, warned committee members that bumping the tax from 8 to 10% could make multi-million-dollar oil projects too economically risky and forcing oil companies to pull out of Alabama. Those oil executives say under the current tax, the state stands to make millions of dollars as offshore oil fields come into production in the future. But they say the increased tax now could stop that production, not only stopping the increase in revenues now, but also stopping the revenue expected to be such a bonanza in the future. But the money committees of each house chose to vote with the proponents of the bill, who contend the increased tax won't deter production or trickle down to higher gas prices at local service stations. 4 other bills changing the way the state makes and receives payments were passed without opposition. The package of bills will be up for House and Senate floor debate tomorrow, the first time a true test will be seen of how much opposition exists to the severance tax bill. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
The committee's decision came after a report from committee chairperson Abigail Turner on her findings after a preliminary hearing on the allegations.
One person there reported that in his view beatings of black suspects had increased in the past year. A number of the people at the meeting had complained to the police department about abuses they had seen or heard about, and they said that they had not gotten results from their complaints.
Then Montgomery City Councilman Donald Watkins urged the committee to look into the charges.
It is hard to promote respect for law and order, respect for police officers, when you have to constantly investigate and constantly disclose the abuse of just fundamental civil rights of persons. And if we don't look at it, and if we don't expose whatever is there, the good as well as the bad, it will probably have irreparable consequences on young people who are growing up. And even more seriously than that, you have a lot of good police officers, and a lot of this stuff I could not get access to if there were not good police officers, who want this kind of problem looked into, and who want a good, clean police department in Montgomery.
The Civil Rights Commissioners say a full report on their findings here in Montgomery is expected to be made public this summer. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Most of the legislative action on the reapportionment bill occurred in the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee. A public hearing on the matter gave a group of blacks from West Alabama a chance to voice objections to the bill. Albert Turner told committee members that he considers the city of Selma the hub of the Black Belt, but he says Selma isn't in a predominantly black Senate district in the proposed bill. J.L. Chestnut warned the committee that whatever they pass, his group will insist on new elections based on that plan this year. The committee had hoped, by working with those who'd originally challenged the plan, that new elections could be avoided. The committee postponed further action on the reapportionment bill to Thursday. Wallace Floor Leader Earl Goodwin of Selma took the mic during the Senate session and urged his colleagues to concentrate on the governor's package designed to help out the financial problem in the state's general fund. Senator Goodwin and other Wallace Floor leaders are afraid the reapportionment bill will cause a filibuster that could wreck their 5-day timetable for passage of the governor's package. A spokesman for the governor has said that if the lawmakers will approve the governor's package, then the chief executive will call the legislature back in session on Monday for reapportionment. The bills Governor Wallace had introduced yesterday cleared committee hurdles with only minor opposition. Chris Grimshaw reports.
Harris has been on death row for 8 years, since the prison uprising at Holman in 1974 and his conviction for killing a guard. Harris was convicted under a seldom used 1862 statute that orders the death penalty for anyone convicted of murder while serving a life sentence. Harris was serving 5 life sentences for robbery and rape from Jefferson County. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, however, overturned the conviction and ordered a new trial. Harris's attorneys argued today that there was no evidence in the original trial that Harris actually stabbed the guard, or that if he did, it was premeditated. Harris's lawyers say their client was convicted on circumstantial evidence surrounding Harris's involvement with the prison uprising. Today, the defense presented dozens of pretrial motions in connection with the upcoming May murder trial. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
What you know?
When word of Coach Bryant's death reached the public, practically every television and radio switchboard in the state was flooded with phone calls from people wanting to get more information. WBAM Radio in Montgomery suspended normal programming to let callers express their feelings toward the bear.
And I'm calling from Eclectic, Alabama, and I'd like to say that all the people here are very sorry to hear about the bear's death, and I just send out all my sympathy to him and his family.
I just want to, thank God that the state of Alabama can be blessed with a person of that stature and that quality to be associated and to bring along fine football players and make great statesmen out of people that came from the state of Alabama.
It seemed that everyone just wanted to be with someone else, to have someone to talk with. At Montgomery Mall, some shoppers said they didn't want to stay at home, but rather wanted to be around other people to reminisce about Bryant.
Our heart and prayers go out to Miss Bryant. I admired the man, really did. He just set a winning tradition, and it's something that Alabama can be proud of. We were talking about a while ago how many people his life has affected, and I think it's just love and a winning tradition that he's showed all of us.
People from all over the place knew Bear, and that he helped people of Alabama put Alabama on the map.
Mac Carmack, WSFA TV News.
I've lost a personal friend as anyone else in Alabama has who's lost him. He brought more fame and glory to this state in this field and other fields too, of having so much impact on so many people's lives. And he had such a wonderful family. And I would like to extend my sincere sympathy to Mary Harmon and Mae Martin and Paul Jr. and all members of the family, because we've lost someone in Alabama that's really not only a unique individual for Alabama, but a unique individual in the whole world, and especially in this country. And nobody will ever replace Coach Paul Bryant. And I loved him like all Alabamians did, and he brought so much fame and credit to Alabama. And it's just very sad.
We attempted to we did put in a pacemaker through the chest wall, and were able to restore a weak heartbeat temporarily, which subsequently failed.
Coach Bryant was stricken with chest pains at the home of a friend last night in Tuscaloosa. Paramedics brought him here to Druid City Hospital, where he was admitted for test and observation. He was reported in good condition, and Druid City spokeswoman Lucy Jordan said that Bryant was apparently in no danger. After resting comfortably last night, Coach Bryant entertained some visitors this morning, then was in the process of undergoing x-rays when he was stricken with the massive heart attack.
He had been stable and had been talking to nurses immediately prior to this attack. Resuscitation measures were carried out, including a pacemaker insertion through his chest wall into the heart. All measures were unsuccessful, and he was pronounced dead at 1:30 p.m.
He had experienced the sudden onset of breathlessness and chest pain at 12:24 p.m. and then within seconds afterward had a cardiac arrest.
I had the opportunity to be with Coach Bryant this morning. Coach Perkins was talking to him, and I must say that he was in very good spirits. He looked great. He commented about football season. He was the man we all loved. We lost him, but I think he died happy.
The word of Coach Bryant's death sent shockwaves across the state. At the Capitol, Governor Wallace ordered the flags on all state buildings to fly at half-mast. And from the governor on down, the mood of the day was one of sadness.
Nobody will ever replace Coach Paul Bryant. And I loved him like all Alabamians did, and he brought so much fame and credit to Alabama. And it's just very sad.
Coach Bryant was not only a great football coach, he's a great man. He could motivate people, he could lead people, he could cause people to give more than they thought that was in them. And I just really am sad that we're not going to have him around.
Well, I was shocked, just like everyone else would be. I think he was a great man, and Alabama will certainly miss him.
We were talking about a while ago how many people his life has affected. And I think it's just love and a winning tradition that he's showed all of us.
Paul William Bear Bryant grew up in virtual football obscurity in the small town of Fordyce, Arkansas. But his all-state performances for the Fordyce Redbugs would bring major college scouts to his door. And he decided to play at Alabama for Coach Hank Crisp. After graduating in 1936, Bryant coached 4 years as an assistant at Alabama, 2 at Vanderbilt before serving in World War II. Then in 1945, the Bear landed his first head coaching stint at Maryland. After only 1 year with the Terrapins, Bryant moved on to Kentucky, where he brought the Wildcats their finest football years. Then in 1954, Bryant left Kentucky for Texas A&M. And in 1958, Mama called. Bryant returned to Alabama, where the football fortunes had hit rock bottom. And in 25 years, Bryant established himself as college football's premier coach. He never had a losing season. His teams claimed 6 national championships, 13 SEC titles, and they went bowling a record 24 straight years. This 28-17 win over Auburn in 1981 gave Bryant 315 career wins, the all-time record for college coaches. After finishing a disappointing 7-4 this season, Bryant decided to give up coaching.
There comes a time in every profession when you need to hang it up. And that time has come for me as head football coach at the University of Alabama.
6 short weeks after that announcement and 4 weeks to the day after beating Illinois in his final game, Bryant is dead at the age of 69. Following this newscast tonight, TV 12 will present a sports special, a tribute to the Bear. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
It's a real sorrow to all of us, and I think that we'll all remember him, and I think everything he taught us mostly about life, not even football.
I remember when he was recruiting me, he said, I'm not going to offer you anything but a chance, to get an education, a chance to play football, and I'm going to be fair to you 100%, and when I got here, I saw just that.
I think anybody that's involved with Alabama football or knowing Coach Bryant, this is a very sad day for him. I think, he's one of the most remarkable men I've ever been associated with, and I'm just glad that I could have been a part of his winning tradition at Alabama.
It was shocking. It's like losing somebody close to you, and I considered him as a father away from home because, he was my father. I had to talk to him whenever I had a problem or anything, and I would go talk to him about it.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for being so nice to me over the years. All of you I know down our way where I don't have anything better to do. Stop and break bread with me because I'll have a lot of time, I think, now on my hands.
Bear Bryant became a standout for the Fordyce High School Redbugs, playing on both offense and defense. He was recruited by Hank Crisp and came to the University of Alabama, where he was known as the other end because his counterpart on the opposite side of the line was the great Don Hudson. The Bear played on 3 winning teams, including the 1934 squad that beat Stanford 29-13 in the Rose Bowl. After graduation in 1936, Paul Bear Bryant began his coaching career at the university, serving 4 years under Coach Frank Thomas. He left Alabama and went to Vanderbilt for 2 years as an assistant to Red Sanders. After a stint in the Navy, Coach Bryant took the head coach's job at Maryland in 1945. His first Terrapin season went 6-2-1. The next year was the head coach's job at Kentucky, where for the next 8 seasons, he amassed a record of 60 wins, 23 losses, and 5 ties, and 4 bowl appearances. Later in 1954 at Texas A&M, Coach Bryant suffered his first losing season, but turned things around in the next 3 years, winning the Southwest Conference title and producing Heisman Trophy winner John David Crow. Then came the Alabama years, beginning in 1958, when the record books were filled with his accomplishments. 6 national championships, 13 conference championships, and the most wins by any college football coach. His teams produced dozens of outstanding athletes, men who went on to the pro and college coaching ranks. And then there were the superstars who played for the Bear.
What he teaches you on the football field carries over into everyday life. He teaches you to be prepared, to know you're prepared for the job.
I probably wouldn't have been a professional football player if it hadn't been for Coach Bryant, because he kicked me in the pants when I needed to be kicked in the pants.
At 12:24 p.m. today, Coach Paul W. Bear Bryant had a sudden cardiopulmonary arrest. He had been stable and had been talking to nurses immediately prior to this attack. Resuscitation measures were carried out, including a pacemaker insertion through his chest wall into the heart. All measures were unsuccessful, and he was pronounced dead at 1:30 p.m. The cause of his death was a massive coronary occlusion.
Coach Bryant experienced the onset of chest pain with nausea while visiting a friend yesterday afternoon, and was transferred to Druid City Hospital. His condition at that time stabilized, his pain cleared. Originally, there'd been no evidence of any damage to his heart. His electrocardiograms had remained normal. This morning, he was in good spirits, joking with the nurses. He had experienced the sudden onset of breathlessness and chest pain at 12:24 p.m. and then within seconds afterward had a cardiac arrest. And, all of our resuscitative efforts were to no avail.
I had the opportunity to be with Coach Bryant this morning. Coach Perkins was talking to him, and I must say that he was in very good spirits. He looked great. He commented our football season. He was the man we all loved. We lost him, but I think he died happy.
Got back, and the receptionist said that the hospital had called and said that we better get on up here, that something bad was happening. Of course, we rushed up, and we got there about 1:45, and about 1:30, Dr. Hill came out and told us of the situation.
This came as a total surprise to everyone.
Well, yeah, it did. Phil, I was out to dinner last night, and phone was ringing when I came in about 9:30. Excuse me. Went by to see him, and his doctor was there. And at the time, and still this morning, he still wasn't sure that he'd had a heart attack, and wouldn't know until I ran some tests today. He was in a good mood last night. His coloring was good. We talked about several things. And I went back this morning about 10:30, and he had been reading the paper and opened some of his mail and asked for Billy Varner to come out and bring his briefcase to him. And he realized then, because of what the doctor told him, he was going to have to cancel a couple of trips he'd made. But after Miss Bryant and I left, his daughter, Mae Martin, came in a few minutes later, and had just been gone about 15 minutes when it happened.
The only way I can describe it, that it was a shock at this time, his passing. I think that all of us in our department in athletics have lost not only a professional friend, but a personal friend, and those of us, and many of us, I'm sure, as players and associates, and feel we may well have lost a second father. I know that Coach Bryant, in passing, would certainly feel that each one of us and those in the university athletic community, as well as the university community, would certainly be encouraged by him to continue to press forward to try to perpetuate the tradition and things that he stood for in athletics, and I certainly feel that we will try to do that.
The entire University of Alabama community, the state, and indeed the country grieve at this shocking and terrible loss. It is impossible for me to convey fully what Paul Bryant meant to this institution, or to recount the innumerable contributions he made to the thousands of lives he touched. He was more than the finest football coach who ever lived. He was a great teacher, a great man, and a dear personal friend. We are deeply saddened, and our hearts go out in sympathy to his family.
Funeral services for Paul William Bryant will be conducted at 10 a.m. Friday at First United Methodist Church in Tuscaloosa. The Reverend Joe Elmore and Dr. Duncan Hunter will preside. Graveside services will be conducted at 12:30 p.m. Friday at Elmwood Cemetery in Birmingham. Hayes Chapel of Tuscaloosa is handling arrangements. Coach Bryant is at Hayes Chapel. His casket is closed and his body will not be available for public viewing. The family of Paul Bryant respectfully requests that donations be made in lieu of flowers, and it is further requested that those donations be made to the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa Football Scholarship Fund. Such donations should be mailed to the University of Alabama Athletic Department, P.O. Box K, University, Alabama 35486. Active pallbearers for the funeral will be members of the 1982 University of Alabama football team. Honorary pallbearers will be former players and associates of Coach Bryant during his 38 years as a college football head coach.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Howell in the TV 12 newsroom. Former head football coach of the University of Alabama, Paul Bear Bryant, is dead at the age of 69. A spokeswoman at Druid City Hospital in Tuscaloosa confirmed that Coach Bryant died about 12:30 this afternoon, but no details are available on the cause of death at this time. We do know that Coach Bryant was admitted to the hospital yesterday complaining of chest pains. The University Athletic Department is scheduling a news conference momentarily where more information and more details will be released. Again, Coach Paul Bear Bryant died this afternoon at the age of 69. We'll have more information throughout the afternoon, full details, and a tribute to Bear Bryant on tonight's 6 o'clock report. I'm Bob Howell in the TV 12 newsroom.
Honey.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Howell in the TV 12 newsroom. Alabama head football coach Paul Bear Bryant is dead in Tuscaloosa at the age of 69. A hospital spokesman has just confirmed the fact that Coach Bryant died within the last hour. No details are available as of yet. We understand that Coach Bryant was admitted to the hospital yesterday complaining of chest pains, but now the hospital spokesman said that Paul Bear Bryant is dead at the hospital. We'll have more on that coming up later on newscast this afternoon. Any further information that we have will be passing along. I'm Bob Howell in the TV 12 newsroom.
I signed the task force report because I concur with most of the general observations and recommendations. And I'm confident that Governor Wallace will provide the leadership and effort with our support to move Alabama forward towards not only economic recovery, but economic prosperity. The governor has indicated that he wishes the task force to continue its service to the state. So, Dr. Rouse, we're not through yet.
The landmark at the Auburn University campus bore the mark of sympathy for Coach Bryant, the flag at half-mast at Sanford Hall. It was a miserable day on the campus, cold and wet. But everywhere we went, students, faculty, and staff people talked about one thing, Coach Bryant's death. Even at Toomer's Corner, the spot where for decades Auburn students and fans have celebrated their victories, the mood of the people was somber. Mac Lipscomb, who runs Toomer's drugstore, said a steady stream of loyal Auburn fans have come into his store in disbelief that the symbol of Alabama football is gone.
Since yesterday's announcement, that's been the topic of discussion. And we know that we've lost a man that even won our respect. There is sadness here. We'll miss him, and as I'm sure everyone else will.
Of course, I was sad when he retired, but, you know, maybe 10 times as sad when I heard that he died.
I've heard only positive things about Mr. Bryant at Auburn, and I really think that the rivalry gets sometimes petty, but I think that the respect of the man overcame that.
Everybody seemed to respect him. There was never any question as to his integrity or to his honesty, and everyone respected him for his record and for his ability to win friends and influence people.
Even with the fading memories of the celebration of the last Auburn-Alabama game still hanging limp in the oaks of Toomer's Corner, it was the consensus that things just won't be the same without the Bear standing on the opposite side of the field. I'm Bob Howell, WSFA TV News in Auburn.
Of Alabama, where he was schooled from whence he journeyed to take his first step to the pinnacle of his profession, and William Bryant, whereas now, in shock and thoroughly sorely bereaved in grief, the Alabama legislature must share its sorrow with all of its alma mater as head football coach for the University of Alabama Crimson Tide some 25 years ago. It was here among family, friends, and hero worshipers that Coach Paul Bear Bryant amassed a great majority of his great victories to establish his record as the winningest coach in college football history. And whereas Coach Bryant was a man loved by all, the Alabama legislature must share its sorrow with all our state, the nation, and the world in the death, January 26, 1983, of
As expected, the gas and oil severance tax increase was the only bill to generate any considerable opposition. A third of the House members voting tried unsuccessfully to kill the measure. The other 5 bills in the governor's package moved almost unanimously in the House. The Senate also approved the other measures but held off its debate on the severance tax bill, apparently waiting for a fight on Saturday when the House version of the tax bill reaches them. The House version of the tax bill met a brief filibuster today from members of the Mobile County delegation. Representative Taylor Harper called the measure a train ready to roll over them, saying the tax on oil companies is a hasty and detrimental way to raise taxes. Harper argued the tax could make oil production too expensive, causing those oil companies to pull out of the state, meaning the state wouldn't get the estimated $1 million a day in royalties and taxes that oil fields in the Mobile Bay are expected to generate when they begin full production in the next decade. But the bill's sponsors argued the state needs the money now. Representative John Casey said there weren't any other solutions being offered, and the choices siding with the oil companies or passing the tax and funding departments that he and others say serve the aged, the poor, and the sick. Other arguments from Mobile County representatives defended what many call poor elderly widow women, who under this proposed bill would have part of their royalty checks lost to sharing the increased tax. The Mobile delegation lost every effort to amend, delay, or kill the bill. It finally passed 68 to 28 in the House. The only other controversy centered on when next to meet. Governor Wallace sent the House and Senate members a message urging the members to meet continuously through Saturday. The Senate was first to agree, but only narrowly, 18 to 15. The House was also reluctant, having to use some parliamentary moves to keep the issue alive. The opposition came from several fronts, including those who had other pressing engagements, those who opposed the severance tax issue, and others trying to work on the controversial reapportionment issue. But House leaders say the governor's package deserved their immediate and continued attention, so both chambers will meet late tomorrow, leaving time for members to attend the funeral of Paul Bryant. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
We've now met these standards.
Before the Alabama Senate began debate on the governor's package of bills, there was an attempt to extend the session to next week. In a message, Governor Wallace asked the lawmakers to meet continuously until his legislative package is passed. Senator Bill Cabness wanted to meet again next week, saying one bill didn't need to be stampeded.
Some of this legislation, in my opinion, flies directly in the face of the attempts and the efforts that we've all renewed ourselves to gain and attract new industry and jobs in this state. And I'm speaking specifically with regards to the oil and gas tax legislation.
Senator Cabness was unsuccessful, and the Senate, like the House, passed a resolution to meet Friday and Saturday. The governor's bills on tax collections, interest payments, and procedures for state debt service payment passed with little problem. Senator Ryan DeGraffenreid of Tuscaloosa voiced concern over the bill transferring about $8 million from the Heritage Trust Fund to Medicaid. The bill passed anyway. A vote and possible filibuster on the oil severance tax was avoided when the sponsor of the tax increase bill, Senator Earl Goodwin of Selma, agreed to carry the measure over. Much of the concern was the constitutionality of originating a revenue-raising measure in the Senate. Others, like Bill Minton of Mobile, just didn't want the tax.
And I just don't want to be in a position several years from now to say, Father, forgive them, for they knew not what they did back there in 1983.
In the House, the oil severance tax bill created the most interest. After 3 hours of debate and filibuster, the bill was passed and sent to the Senate. The other bills in the governor's package faced little opposition. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
In his inaugural address, the governor promised to ask bankers to defer foreclosures on personal residences for folks who are out of work and can't make the payments.
They agreed, the bankers in the state, to work out maybe restructured payments, refinancing, and things of that sort in order to help those who are newly unemployed be able to, of course, to still hold on to that life they are living, middle-class life.
We will direct our lending officers to explore all means of reconcilement with our customers who are having difficulty with their payments.
Mr. Leslie says the banks will work with borrowers by refinancing, rescheduling, or granting extensions of loans. But this only affects personal residences for a period of 90 days for those who are unemployed and have loans with these banks. Governor Wallace, however, says he plans to contact mortgage companies to urge them to join the program. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Savings and whether I said saving in loans to mortgage companies, I intended to, and we're going to contact them this week. But I contacted Mr. Leslie here, who's president of the Union Bank and Trust Company here in Montgomery, and vice president, I believe, of the Independent Bank. And Mr. Harry Brock here, who...
I'd like to ask both of the gentlemen how much arrearage they've been on all of our indebtedness. We realize that we should have patience and understanding, and we're certainly trying.
These students at John Patterson Technical School in Montgomery can help improve the state's economy. But in order for them to do that, the vocational school must keep up with the rapidly changing needs of the 80s. The council's report shows technical education programs need upgrading. Technical and junior colleges across the state need to pool their resources and expand their services with the private sector. But that's not all.
You will see in any reports you read from all over the country that high technology requires more than technical training. It requires a basic background in math, science, and the communication skills of verbal and written.
The council's report also shows the post-secondary vocational schools are making improvements in technological education for the students, but some areas remain weak.
The technician level training, the 2-year degreed technician, is the area that we have seen the most need for in Alabama.
Council representatives say preparing these students for jobs in the highly technical era is the only way to bring in industry in the state and the only way to help lower Alabama's high unemployment rate. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
Coach Bryant's body is lying in state here at Hayes Memory Chapel in Tuscaloosa. Bryant family members have been receiving guests throughout the day. Funeral services for Coach Bryant will begin tomorrow morning at 10 at the First United Methodist Church in Tuscaloosa. It will be a closed service as requested by the family.
There'll be no live media coverage inside the First Methodist Church at the request of Mrs. Bryant.
University officials say they are expecting close to 10,000 people in Tuscaloosa tomorrow paying their last respects to Coach Bryant. Of course, this creates a tremendous overcrowding problem. The church holds only 450. Therefore, 2 alternative churches in the area have been set up to handle some of the overflow. The 1982 football team will be serving as pallbearers, while all other former players and coaches will be honorary pallbearers. And listed among others possibly attending the service is President Reagan, which will also add to the overcrowding problems. There also will be no media coverage inside the church, as was requested by the family. However, coverage will be allowed outside the church. After the services in Tuscaloosa, the funeral procession will proceed to Birmingham, where Coach Bryant will be laid to rest in a private ceremony at Elmwood Cemetery. Late this afternoon, the University of Alabama community and the city of Tuscaloosa paid their final respects to Coach Bryant in an open service here at Memorial Coliseum. Tonight at 10, I'll have a report on that service. In Tuscaloosa, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
Move over, math and science students. The next round belongs to fine arts lovers. Montgomery County school officials are very enthusiastic about a proposal to create a special curriculum for students involved in theater, dance, and music.
We've wanted to do something in this direction for quite a long while, and finally we're getting up the courage because there is a groundswell of interest in Montgomery in the arts.
The proposal calls for a creative and performing arts center at Carver High School. Admission would be open to all Montgomery County students, allowing them to combine performing arts classes with regular academics.
So that they are not saying here as a 9th grader that I'm making a commitment for life, that I am taking a program that is so heavily involved in the arts that I would never be able to perform in any other area.
School board members decided to wait a month before fully endorsing the proposal to see how private fundraising efforts go. And right now, those prospects look good. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Members of the Bryant family entered Memorial Coliseum before a large and silent crowd. After University Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Roger Sayers, thanked those that came, he read a telegram that was sent from the Reverend Billy Graham to Mrs. Bryant. She wanted it to be shared with the audience.
I sincerely believe, because of the grace of God in Christ, you will see him again in heaven. Please extend my condolences to your family, friends, and especially the university community.
Former Bryant player and coach Stedman Shealy then took the podium. He began by relaying the story of a prayer that Coach Bryant had recited after his team's final victory in the Liberty Bowl only one short month ago.
But he was not too proud to get on his knees before Almighty God. It's like a little child. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, Lord, thank you for allowing me to be a part of football, to be a part of this team, to be a part of the university for these many years. And it meant so much to me personally because, you see, Coach Bryant gave credit where it was due.
To close the ceremony, student Edwin Weaver sang the University of Alabama alma mater. The family members departed, and the crowd then left the somber occasion silently. As one member of the audience remarked, Coach Bryant may be gone, but he was very much present this afternoon. In Tuscaloosa, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
It's going to really take something away from the game for a while, but eventually the game, it's going to go on. Eventually people will go on, and they'll always remember him as the greatest coach that ever lived. And I've got the utmost respect for the man, and I never got the chance to meet him. I wish I would have, but I just feel proud to have been on the same field he was on.
It seems like a part of me has left because I'm in Auburn, and Auburn, Alabama is such a great rivalry, and that Coach Bryant's left, it seemed like Alabama's gone. The meaning behind beating Alabama and beating Coach Bryant is all gone.
Coach Bryant is a great coach, and I respect him. Respect for all that he done, and him dying like this is a loss to football. Even though he died, his legend will still live on.
If there was ever a genius on the football field, I would say he was a genius on the field.
I would say he was a rock that spoke, a rock that loved, and a rock that cared. He was solid.
And advertising in the paper 3 times
at the Housing Authority.
There's some 1,400. Fuller Brothers bid against 3 other local contractors here, and we received, I believe it was 3 bids. One was not able to bid at that time, but we did give up, and the rest of that money in the next few weeks, 2 to 3, at Old Ramsey High School.
So, looking at those programs and thinking of the things that